Hello and welcome to Patron Saints of Pop Culture. I am your co-saint, as always, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I'm Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about Coco.
Spoiler alert for those of you who have not cried enough yet. Go and watch the movie and cry and then come back. As we would recommend bringing a box of Kleenex with you.
Yeah. I don't know how many of you guys follow me on social media, but that's what the whole I was ugly crying last night was about. Because, seriously, it was so hard for me to, control my sadness.
Well, that was also why we did not stream us playing a game last night, was because...
we were crying
Yeah,
still.
We just finished Coco, so...
We need a little bit more of a pick-me-up. We couldn't go into battle with tears in our eyes.
Well, to be honest, we also haven't been going to battle for the last 2 weeks. Last week was just,
Yeah, and we're sorry about that. We'll try to be more exciting the next time we live stream.
Yeah, that was a lot of talking last time. All right, so our review and summary. Summary is this is the one of the two animated movies about Dia de los Muertos within the last few years. This is the better one. Bought both of them. Watched both of them yesterday. So this is not Book of Life. This is Coco.
Yes.
This is the one put out by Disney, and it is about a boy, Miguel, who
has one dimple.
Yeah, travels to the land of the dead and back and discovers more about his family. Yeah. That was a bad summary.
No, it wasn't. It was pretty on point. Summary. Little boy has a loving family, but he has a big dream. And his family does not support his dream because they think that it's bad to pursue. So he runs away and he goes into the land of the dead. He realizes that his family is still important, but he can still follow his dream. The end. He comes back to the land of the living.
Okay. I really liked Coco. It was, for the most part, one of the first times that I felt represented in pop culture. Not only because the kid's name was Miguel, but because, he looked like me, too. With the big ears and the big nose. And, of course, you guys don't see me, but... trust me, I do have big ears and a big nose, and I do have the very Aztec face with the one dimple, and and with the white skin, so I do look really weird. So
he does not look weird.
Anyway, I really liked it. I really thought both movies that I watched yesterday was very much teaching me about my own culture, and it drove me to do more research on that today. So you'll find out here in a few minutes about my research and about how really what I learned from all of this. And I really did enjoy it. I think that it was a piece of art that really did justice to Mexican culture, to both that and to how we view death as Mexicans. So.
Yep. My review, I too really liked it in true Pixar fashion. You cry. Because in almost any good Pixar movie, you're going to cry.
Aside from Cars.
Yes, well, that's different. But I would put it on the level of Up. I really, really enjoyed it. It made me feel lots of emotions. I liked it that it wasn't poking fun of Mexican culture like we have seen in plenty of cartoons in the past.
Way too many.
Yeah. There was, the other day I was actually watching Thumbelina with Peter, and I remember loving it as a kid. And I was like, oh, this is great. And so I put it in and we were watching it, and I just couldn't watch it anymore because they had these two... the frogs that
Charo and the backup frogs for Charo.
Yeah, it was just bad. I was like, I can't do this, and so I had to turn it off. But yeah, I did not feel like anybody was poking fun at Mexican culture like you've seen in the past.
No, it was elevated to a point that I don't think that I've seen in popular culture.
They treated it like normal because it is normal.
Well, considering that the way that we've seen it through pop culture, pretty much my entire life has been like let's see, Three Amigos growing up, and that was really making fun of Mexican culture with,
Well, it's also making fun of Hollywood, making fun of Mexican culture.
Yeah, but there were also things in there that
Yeah.
were like El Guapo isn't very smart, and like there was nobody in the movie that was really that smart besides the white guys
Yeah. Well, the white guys,
that were in Hollywood.
not the three white.
Amigos.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some in the town that were smarter than the Three Amigos, but it still seemed like they weren't all that smart.
Yeah. But the point is that was pretty much all you saw growing up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty sad.
Well, and those and other things like the Tres Caballeros with Disney way back when, but that was still a caricature of Mexican culture. So
Yep.
Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about legacy today, especially because of this whole idea of the two deaths that we have in Mexican culture, and it's very much in the being remembered and the death of the physical. We have a little bit of a shout out to Wisecrack because they did really help us with kind of figuring out where to get an idea from, and that was more of Jean Baudrillard, which we got the tip off from their video on Coco. If you have some time, go and watch that. It's a wonderful video. But that Jean Baudrillard really kind of did what we do. Is he really talked about culture and pop culture and art and sociology and stuff like this, and he talked a lot about how in the Western culture we have not really seen death as something to be embraced, as something to be really kind of remembered, that somebody dies, they die, and then you got to forget all about them.
Mm-hmm. Kind of move on with your life.
And that has been really kind of the cowboy culture, as I would call it, of America. And America's culture really has dominated the West. The idea that you pick yourself up by your own bootstraps, that you do your own thing, that you shouldn't be weighed down by the past, you shouldn't be weighed down by anything at all, that you should do you and just that's it.
Yeah, and you should have a very short mourning time when somebody passes.
Exactly.
Like you have a few weeks and that's it.
And this is something that even flies in the face of the Catholic culture that came over. And the funny thing is that America has very much been the Protestant country since the birth of the country. And we have not really seen Catholicism as a good thing.
Except for Maryland.
What?
Maryland.
What are you talking about?
Like, that's why Maryland is like, that's where all the Catholics lived, like at the beginning of the country, is they all moved to Maryland. That's why Maryland was formed.
Okay.
Little tidbit. There you go.
Well, we were really about the Protestant. This is why the Pilgrims came here. This is, and you can see this all through, the important American history, as most people will tell you, is that, the Pilgrims and all those other people who felt like they were being oppressed. Oh, what's funny about the Pilgrims is that they were Anglican, and so we kind of started our own church, the Episcopal Church, on, our soil, so that we're the American non-Church of England people. And so you have these other cultures that were really influenced by Catholic culture that came over with the conquistadors, with the Spanish, with the French, and with all of these other cultures that came over.
Yep. And
they did this wonderful thing, which is called syncretic Christianity. Is they really took the ideas and the cultures, the cultural ideals of the people, and really transferred it to make it more Catholic. Mm-hmm. To make it more of a celebration of whatever it is that Catholics do.
Yep.
And what's funny is that most people will point to Halloween being this pagan holiday from Ireland, but it's yes but the Aztecs also had this whole month celebration, in August to celebrate. And I'm sorry, I don't know my Aztec tongue as well as I should. I'm going to butcher this. Micte Casquehuatl, who is the goddess of death. They really celebrated her and celebrated, what she meant was that she kind of ruled over this land of the dead, that she allowed the dead to come back on this one night in a year to visit their family, to be with their family during this day. Mm-hmm. And this is something that the Catholic culture came in and said, oh, wait, we've got this other holiday. This kind of fits in there a little bit. Mm-hmm. So let's make it 3 days instead of a full month. And you guys can have these 3 days. Yep. And I'll come to talk about that here in just a second. But Dia de los Muertos came out from that idea, was that you had the the Catholic idea and you have the Aztec ideas, and you kind of put them together, and they kind of made this amalgam of a holiday, mm-hmm. which just is beautiful. It views death as not the end, as a transition into this other life, into this other world where you live on through memories. Yeah. You live on in the legacy that you created in this world that you started here. You see this a lot in Coco. You see it, kind of the underlying culture that is behind that. Oh, yeah. It's so important. I mean, it's throughout the whole storyline. And you have these 3 days that starts on Halloween evening. The Halloween evening is the day when the children and the family kind of set up their sorry, I have this wrote down. The ofrendas in their houses. And mostly the first day is about the children. November 1st is about infants and children. This is the Dia de los Angelitos, which is the day of the little angels. This is for the children that have died. These are for the infants that have died. And, you kind of set up the ofrendas for them, remembering those children in your family and those infant births, and you set out toys for them. So this is the first day of that celebration. You set out the family and those offerings for them. And you saw this in the movie where the spirits come over and they take over the spirit of whatever it is that you put out for them. Yeah. So the way that the Mexican culture sees it is that when the family comes over and takes the spirit of it, that, oh yeah, it's still around, but it has no nutritional value. It has no, it's not as fun anymore because the spirit of it was given to the spirit that came over to take it. Okay. That was offered to. So then you have November 2nd, which is for the adults. This is the Dia de los Muertos, which is the full day words of offerings with tequila and alcoholic drinks and it's the party day. Pan de podo, pan dulce, and all these things that you leave out for them. And they take the food, and that's when all the nutritional value comes out of it. So the family still eats that food, but, it's seen as, it's the spirit of the food is gone. Yeah. Well, if you don't eat it, it's also been left out all day anyway. So, and so you have this idea that there is another life beyond this, but this life was meant for something. That what you do in this life really does matter. And I love that this isn't really said throughout this movie at all, but it's more shown. Mm-hmm. That, you have all of these things in there that really kind of, that deep, rich culture that is, my culture that I never really knew about until I watched both of these movies yesterday and did research today. Mm-hmm. But the abrijas, the spirit guides, is something that I really that really touched me, because we do have these abrijes a la vida, which are these things in our lives that we treat as our spirit guides. And I really think this is something that, we see religion taking hold on. Mm-hmm. We have religions that, we let be our spirit guides throughout our life, throughout our physical life here on this earth, and that try to tell us how to use our life in a way that that really brings meaning to that life, that really kind of allows you to have that legacy here on this earth. And, you have this, these ideals, that's exactly what religions is supposed to be for. And then you have this kind of syncretic Christianity, you have going on in Mexico with the Aztec culture and the Catholicism that was brought over.
Yeah.
And so you have these melding of ideas, which I think are beautiful because in a sense for me, this is who I've become, is this really syncretic Christian, is that I have these basic ideals, and this is a lot of my mom's culture. My mom from England and from the early American settlers, which I am descendant of, like the very early American settlers, way back to 1600s to 1500s when we started sending people over, when England started sending people over here. And so that's who I am. I'm syncretic. I am both, and I am both that early American English settler, and I'm also this Mexican, Aztec amalgamation of the both. And that's why I really want to get that tattoo symbol with Quetzalcoatl. Sorry, that's my Aztec tongue is really bad, but Quetzalcoatl. Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
Is the winged serpent, and you see the winged serpent when he's first walking across the pedal bridge into the land of the dead, which I was like, oh, that's mine. That's my abrije. And so it is, because that it is my birth deity. It is Quetzalcoatl, which is also a very similar story to Jesus, in that he sacrifices himself, that his blood is one that redeems humanity. In that cultural ideal. And so, sorry, I can go on about this the entire time, and we're supposed to be talking about Coco. But I just wanted to bring this all the way around to what do you want? Do you want on your ofrenda? How do you want to be remembered in your life? And this is something that the calaveras are. The skulls, the skull-like caricaturations of living people, that they were meant to mock the person a little bit, but they're also meant to bring about the funny stories of their lives, so the reasons why you loved them, and that it was a mocking thing, but it's also a mocking in a good way, in a loving way, in a way that you're saying, oh, remember when they did this, remember when, and laughing about it.
It's like, well, like most families, in the family, you can make fun of each other, but as soon as a stranger makes fun of, like, your family, you're like, no.
Well, and to borrow from Gladiator, it's kind of like what he says in there is that what we do in this life echoes in eternity. And so I think throughout this entire movie is trying to figure out that point of, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered after you're gone? And we'll talk about that here in just a moment, because I am talking way too much.
No, that's okay. I don't mind you talking. I mean, you were on a roll, so. Yeah. Yep. I didn't feel like I had to interject too much.
But you're giving off this body language of, you got to wrap it up.
No. I was just cold. I was literally wrapping myself up in a blanket.
Okay.
So anyway, talking about legacy, obviously the most important person in this family, in Miguel's family in terms of legacy, has to be Imelda. I mean, she's that strong female matriarch of the family who set this path for the family like many, many decades ago. And we kind of learn, why at the beginning through that little story. And you kind of understand, why she didn't like music. I mean, you kind of get it, right? I mean, I would be kind of upset if you just left me and like, I'm going to go out and pursue basket weaving and then never come back. I may hate baskets a little bit. But
I'm not a good basket weaver.
I couldn't think of anything else. That's the first thing that popped into my head. But I mean, she did. She was hurt. She felt abandoned. She had a lot of, I don't know, animosity towards Hector, and that's totally understandable. I mean, anybody in her circumstance, I mean, I can totally understand where she's coming from. But she took that hate, or she took that anger, she took that abandon, and she turned it into a force for good for her family. Like, she did what any mom would do. And she's like, okay, I have a family to support. I have a daughter who needs me. What can I do? What can I do? So she taught herself how to make shoes. She built this little empire. I mean, if you look at the family, they're not like super wealthy, but they are, you know, they're doing well. They clearly are able to support themselves in terms of like what they're doing, which is great. But we find out that she didn't really know the truth. Like even though like her hurt made something good in terms of like being able to support her family, it also wasn't really what happened. Like it was just her side of the story that we learned of. And then Hector, that poor guy, I mean, he wanted to follow his dreams. And like probably everybody else in the world, he was told he should pursue his dreams as a child. But then when he became an adult, they're like, no, you can't do that. No, that's stupid. No, you need to stay home and you need to get a real job. You know, don't follow your dreams. Which, I don't know about you, but I find is a real... It's really confusing for kids. Like we can't tell them to pursue their dream and then be like, never mind. What I told you is not the truth. Don't do that.
I mean, you see this a little bit with Miguel when he's yelling at Imelda at that one point where he says, you know, I am, you know, my family doesn't support me.
Yeah.
They don't support like what I am. That, you know, I'm a musician. That this is what I am. So. Yep.
And, well, at the same time, we along the storyline when we finally realize that Hector actually is his, you know, great grandfather, we learned that's not the truth. Like, her story is not the full story. Like, it may be her truth, but there's more to what happened. We learned that he actually wanted to go home. The reason why he was killed was because he told his partner, I need to go home. I need to see my little girl. Best of luck, but I gotta go, dude. Mm-hmm. I gotta see my family. And that longing for home is very understandable. I get it. I mean, us living in Cleveland, you know, the closest family lives in Virginia. I mean, it's still, I guess, close. I mean, it's still like a half a day's drive, but still, I mean, I don't know about you, but occasionally I'll have that just pinging of longing for home, you know, to go see somebody familiar in my family. So he goes and he sets off and he gets killed by his partner. And as an unfortunate circumstance of that, he died being hated by his family. And which then sets him down that path of his picture being ripped out and him not being able to see his daughter ever again. And I just feel for him because Hector, like I didn't get the feeling like once we find out like his side of the story that he was a bad person. Like his family made him out to see this like awful person who just only thought of himself, but he wrote his songs for his daughter. Like he wrote Remember Me for her. And you can tell, you know, he has like those little jabs about the song like during the movie, but
the
figure out
bastardization
why.
of, you know, and becoming this pop hit that, you know, it was not supposed to be.
No, it was supposed to be a lullaby for his daughter, and he just totally warped
even
this.
in the lyrics is, you know, he says the secret song that, you know, he was to share just with her, so.
Yeah, and I would be upset about it too. I'm surprised that he didn't confront oh my gosh, I can't remember his name, the singer guy.
De La Cruz?
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't confront him sooner. Because, I mean, they were in the same place. But I guess one of the morals of Coco comes to there's truth on both sides of the story. And I think that that's really important, especially in today's political climate, knowing that there is truth in what people are saying and how they feel. They may not have all the facts, of course, but before you make a decision, it's really important, actually, to hear everybody's story, to hear why they think the way that they think. You know, gather up all the pieces and then decipher for yourself what the truth is or what the real meaning behind everything is. Because the answer really is usually in the middle between the two extremes of the two viewpoints of whatever we're looking at. Well, except for science. I mean, science, like when we find out something that's fact, like that's fact. But in terms of
objective truth.
Yes. I'm talking about like the stuff that brings out the emotional aspects of
Subjective
us.
truth.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I guess what I'm going to take away from this for the most part is just learning to see the both sides of the story, you know, taking the time and actually listening to people who I disagree with, asking the appropriate questions, try not to be condescending, because I know that's really hard for everybody, especially when they feel that they are right. I think that's the hardest part, is not trying to be condescending.
Well, that and remembering that the person on the other end is a human being.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that with the principles in this parable, we can find that legacy is important, especially with your own family.
Yeah.
And this is something that I was dreading talking about today, because I know I'm going to get emotional when I'm talking about it. And so I'm sorry, I'm going to get emotional while talking about this. But like, there are so many things that I saw in Miguel that I see in myself, that, you know, my family never really understood me being an artist, me being this person that expresses himself through his writing, through my art and theater, and through all this other stuff. But my dad never got that, because my dad was more of the machismo, Latin guy, is that you're not in touch with your feelings. You do the strong work that needs to be done because you're strong. Even though he did have his own art, he was a cook.
That's definitely
he enjoyed
from
food.
Art. Yeah.
And, that's something that I think, what's funny is that comes out more in Book of Life, is that going against the family thing, because they were bullfighters in that one, is that, Sanchez men, we don't apologize. And it's that I see my dad so much in that, is that, Covarrubias men, we don't apologize. We don't do that, because we're men. We're strong. We're not in touch with our feelings. We're not, like all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not the legacy that I want to leave behind. I want to be remembered. I want my ofrenda, my calaveras on my ofrenda to be something that is characteristic of a man who loved everybody that he came in touch with, a man that was family to everyone, that the world was my family, just like Coco sings at the, or not Coco, Miguel sings at the end. Coco sings the "Remember Me" at the end, but
yeah.
Which is when we all began to cry. Weep openly towards this movie, and I think that's very much the truth, is when he revealed the truth of himself to his family, and that Coco kind of revealed that as well, about what the music meant to her, that the music unlocked her memories, and really made her last days better in that.
Now I'm gonna cry.
And so I think that's part of the truth of that, is that living your own truth. And I know people make fun of millennials for using that all the time, that, saying that, just live your own truth. There's a lot of truth in that. We grew up with these staunch ideals. We grew up with these abrijes a la vida, which I'm making up this phrase on my own. These abrijes a la vida, these spirit guides of our lives that really make no sense.
Yeah.
That these
YOLO
religious ideas that people hold to that make absolutely no sense whatsoever, and this has to do a lot with and here I am. I'm going to go political, especially right now with the gun debate. That if you're not going to see the value in somebody else's argument, in somebody else's viewpoint, then you have already lost the argument. You have already lost who you are, and it makes no sense whatsoever. If you're going to hold tightly to this whole, well, the Second Amendment, but the Second Amendment now is written in our children's blood, that our children are not safe at school. This is why I get emotional about this argument, is that my legacy should not be one of death and blood, where I send my son to a school where I am afraid that I will not see him at the end of the day because of this. Is that I don't want this. I don't want the legacy of my generation, of my country, to be that we allow people to die. And that's something that I think is very evident in this movie, that's something that we can take away from this, is that what do we want for our legacy? What do we want on our ofrenda? What do we want from our calaveras? When people make, like, remember him, remember when he did this thing? I don't want it to be, oh, remember him, remember how much he was so into guns. Is that, I am not anti-gun. I am not. I know responsible gun owners. I know people who use them for sport. I know that
people who use them to feed their family.
Yeah, that go hunting and all this other stuff. And, you don't need an assault rifle for that. Those are meant as mass killing machines. And, I know that there are arguments on either side that do hold truths to it, but these are subjective truths that we need to come together and be able to study these things to be able to find the objective truth.
Oh yeah. And the thing that keeps bothering me is when people, especially those who are staunch, they are convinced that we want to take their guns away. No one wants to take your guns away. But then they're like, we need to know why this happened. We need to know why. Well, then let the CDC, let the FDC study it. You know why they can't? Because the NRA went in, bought our politicians, and then our politicians decided that the FDC and the CDC can't study it. Sorry, just can't. You want to know why it's happening? Let's at least take that step. Let's be able to actually have the appropriate departments study why this is happening.
And you can point your fingers all you want and blame whatever you want to blame for this problem. And it's not about God not being in schools, because God is there. Kids are allowed to pray. I was the president of a Bible club in my public school. I was the one that was making sure the kids prayed in the mornings. I was the one that set up the see you at the pool. And that's the thing, is that these kids are allowed to do that.
If you're so worried about God being in schools, you should be worried more about God being in your household first.
Well, and this is the thing, is that these abrijes a la vida, these things that we allow to guide our spirit life in our physical life, that, we're making them so that we're allowing ourselves to be forgotten after death. That these things are things that we want to be forgotten. These are things that we don't realize that we're setting a legacy for all of this. And this was my point of the entire first part there. And I'm not quite sure if I said it aloud or not, is that there are these two deaths. You have that physical death, and you have that being forgotten death, that your legacy has passed on. And I think that we've forgotten that in this country. We've forgotten that there is that second death, that there is that when you're not remembered anymore, that there really are two deaths. And I don't want to be, well, one, I don't want to be forgotten, and I don't think anybody wants to be forgotten. And two, I don't want to be remembered for misusing my physical life. Mm-hmm. I want it to be a life that shows love to everybody. And that's why I started doing the Honest Faith stuff. That's why I started doing the podcast. That's why, all of these things that I'm doing now is in a sense, is my new ministry. Is my ministry to show people that they're not alone. They matter. That even if nobody else will remember them, that I will remember them. And I don't think that my family really gets that. Mm-hmm. And that's why it makes it emotional for me, is that I don't think my family understands why why when I left the church, why I can't go back. I can't go back to the church because those are abrijas a la vida that are dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
They're dangerous to my life. They're dangerous to my family's life. I cannot continue to allow that danger to take place in my life and in my family's life. Because I'm finding God to be much clearer now on the outside of church than I ever did on the inside. I'm finding that more now that when I read the Bible, when I read through scriptures, I'm finding that God is much more evident in those scriptures now outside the church than they ever were when I was inside. And that's the legacy that I want to leave behind. I want to leave my son, my family, with this idea that I knew God and I shared that love with everyone that I met. That is the legacy that I want for my life. And that's the truth that I want to live.
All right.
Do you have anything to add to
No, I think that's a good ending point.
Okay. Now that I stepped down off of my soapbox. Well, here, wrapping it up, this is what is going to be going on in the next couple of weeks. Next week, we are doing the Chronicles of Narnia. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. To be honest, we'll have a lot of tidbits about that because the Chronicles of Narnia were my favorite thing growing up, whereas Kathy has Harry Potter. Chronicles of Narnia was mine.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I did also enjoy Chronicles of Narnia. I'm not like Harry Potter's so much better. Like,
well, no. I'm not saying that you are. I'm just saying that was how important it was to my life.
Yeah.
Was.
And we are going to be doing a partnership with our friend Chris. Oh my gosh, I'm going to say his name wrong.
Kellison Decker?
Yes. For some reason, I second guessed that. But anyway, he does a blog where he makes
foods from literary works.
Exactly. And so he's going to be doing a special treat from the Chronicles of Narnia. I'm sure several of you probably know or have something in mind that might be good for him to make, but you'll have to wait until next Sunday, unless he already has announced it on his blog. But anyway.
Yeah, Much Ado About Muffin is his blog.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So go check that out.
The week after, we will be doing Thor Ragnarok. We will finally be able to go see that. And so we've set out tentatively in 3 weeks to do Black Panther. I don't know if we'll be able to get to go see that within the next 3 weeks or not, but we're going to tentatively put it there.
Yes.
So if you have anything to say about what we had to say today, you may yell at me if that's the gun debate thing that I'm talking about. Anyway, whatever. Or text us or whatever. You can find us, you can give us a call at 720-372-3879. Leave us a voicemail. Or you can even text us at that number, and we will probably use what you have to say on our future shows. Also, you can find us on social media. We are on Facebook at Real Honest Faith. We also have a group on Facebook, which nobody really talks in there yet, but you can join, and we're on there. So just you can join and say something and be like, hey, what about this? And we can have a conversation about it on Facebook in that group. And that one, actually, we've changed the name to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture Podcast. So you can find us through that, or you can find us through the page, Real Honest Faith on Facebook.
Yep.
You can also find us on Twitter. We are at Real Honest Faith. We are on Tumblr. We're on Reddit. I'm on Reddit quite a bit because I get bored during the day at work sometimes. And so, I kind of read posts on there. I think I just got kicked out of the Christianity subreddit. So that's a different story for a different day. You can get back to us. Just redesigned the honestfaith.com website. You can go and check that out. It's really highlighting all of the things that we are doing here in House Cover Rubius with Honest Faith, including the podcast. Let's see. You can also find us on Patreon. We are doing a live stream of our game. We are playing Divinity Original Sin. together on Saturday nights. We have a glass of wine and usually a food that is not loud. Last time it was with popcorn and with a lot of dialogue, so there's going to be heavy editing on last week's video. But you will find there a Patreon-only patron subscriber Let's Play of us playing Divinity Original Sin, and that'll be the edited version, so you don't have to sit through like hours of conversations between characters in that game. And with all of that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.